Today on the news and why it matters, the Trump transcript was released. We have that and an interesting discussion we will get into. Get your popcorn ready. It starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sara Gonzalez, today joined by Glenn Beck. Yes. So glad you're here for today.
Oh my gosh, today is a day that will, this is a quote from Chris Cuomo. This is a date that will live in well, we'll have to wait and see. Oh my gosh.
He really said that?
Oh, he really said that. He really
oh
said
my
that.
gosh.
Yeah,
Stubergear. Hello,
yes.
welcome back.
Thank you. I was actually here, but I missed the AM and PM on my clock, so no one else was.
Oh, huh.
Yeah.
Seems kind of dumb.
Well, everyone makes mistakes.
To show you how crazy the news cycle is, when he left, they were still talking about impeaching Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
Okay, it hadn't
wow.
been exposed that whole thing was a joke and just a horrible source from the New York Times.
And now we're on.
And now we're on another source that seems to be a joke of all time.
This one's real. It's
Yeah.
real this time.
And this time we're talking about impeaching somebody else. It was 1 week ago.
That's insane. That's incredible. And also welcome, double dose of Jason Howerton here from Blaze Media. So before we get into the conversation, we want to thank our sponsor, iTarget Pro. Glenn, you always talk about the importance of dry firing.
Yeah, I am somebody who likes to shoot. My son and I, we have competition when we go out and shoot. My whole family loves to shoot. My daughter, she has cerebral palsy, and one of the things that she loves, her favorite thing to do is to shoot, but she's been having seizures lately, and so she hasn't felt comfortable holding onto a gun. But this is a great way for her to practice, a great way for us to practice, because you're not wasting any bullets, and they're really expensive. I mean, going to the range and really having a day at the range can cost you a lot of money. This is a way for you to have trigger control. This is a way for you to practice at home in the safety of your home, with the safety of nothing being in your gun, and it's really, really price effective.
Yeah, it pays for itself really quickly. You can go
like
to
one session.
Yeah, itargetpro.com. Get 10% off plus free shipping if you use promo code NEWS. That is itargetpro.com. Gentlemen, the Trump transcript was released. I believe we all have copies of it on the table. Glenn, impeachment. Obviously, it's very clear in this transcript that President Trump...
I swear to you, I live in a different world. I came from a different planet than this one. Because I watched CNN last night for the first time in a year and a half, and I swear to you, I would have rather gone to Vietnam. I am so post-traumatic stress syndrome after watching 1 hour of Chris Cuomo. I would have rather served in Vietnam, been napalmed. I would have rather been that little naked kid running down the street than have to watch another second of Chris Cuomo.
Do I have permission to superimpose your head on social?
Yes, you.
Running down.
It is. That was me last night after watching an hour of that. It's insane what they're doing. And Stu was talking just before we went on the air of the insane things they're doing to take this transcript, which actually shows the president asking for a favor. You know what the favor is? To finish the Mueller report. He's like, look, this Mueller report was a joke. It ended in nothing. But I need you to look into CrowdStrike. And I warn you, I think some of the people around you are part of that. What is CrowdStrike? CrowdStrike is the group that we found out later was operating for the Russians in Ukraine that helped hack the DNC. So he's doing Mueller's job.
Yeah.
He's doing Mueller's job. And they're even taking that out of context today.
Yeah, I mean,
Stu, I want you to walk us through kind of what this says, would you? And then we can get into the media's reaction and the media's coverage of it.
yeah, I mean, the beginning and the end don't have much of anything.
Right.
They're just kind of, I mean,
Hello, congrats.
it's very
kind of
complimentary.
embarrassing.
Yes, they're falling all over each other.
It's like Boris Johnson and Donald Trump. There's another little clone.
My favorite part is when the Zelensky says, yes, you're absolutely right. Not only 100% right, but actually 1,000%.
Did you notice he also said he's going to have the best people?
Yeah,
I'm
he
going to
did.
surround myself with just the best people, the most competent.
Just
He said,
like
drain
you.
the swamp. He's
Yeah.
saying all like the little catchphrases. And look, we all know this is a strategy from foreign leaders with Donald Trump. Like they know that he likes to get praised.
And we're America. Okay, let's be honest.
And you should be
But wait a
praising
minute,
us,
wait a minute.
right? Like,
Yeah, but wait a minute. What's crazy is these people don't speak English as their first language.
No.
And the press and the Democrats can't figure out what they figured out.
No, I know.
Just say, you're terrific.
Right.
You're terrific.
Yes. But I mean, one thing that they do get into this, he asks a favor, he talks about CrowdStrike, he talks about that. They go over that a little bit where the Ukrainian president covers that. Then he comes back and says, look, I also want to talk to you about your prosecutor and Biden's son. So it's a separate thing. And the way the media is summarizing it, however, is step one, I want you to do a favor for me. Step two, can you look into Biden? And to give you an idea, just visually here, if you're this right here is I would like you to do us a favor. It's the very top of page 3. You have to go through all this text where he just explains that, the entire response, and then the next paragraph where at the very end is when this happens. Someone on Twitter was saying it's over 500 words they're omitting about a totally different topic to make it look like the favor is that he wants Biden to be investigated.
The favor is, can you help us find the server? Because we think the server that has all of the DNC stuff on it is still within your midst, maybe in your circle of influence. So can you look into that? That's very important to us. The president is asking to rescue the DNC server for them because all they concentrated on was him, not what actually happened.
Yeah, and look, I am not a guy who wakes up every day and thinks Trump has all of the most pure intentions on everything that he does. I do not look at this and say, well, Trump is just super concerned about Ukrainian corruption when he wakes up in the morning and he just had to make sure he mentioned it. Do I think that Trump was looking for something about Joe Biden here? Yeah, and is it the prettiest thing you've ever seen from a politician? I would argue no. However, his interests would align here with American interests in that if the Vice President of the United States is doing something shady and corrupt, it's great that we'd have resources to find out about it.
I want to make it really clear because they keep saying that Joe Biden has done no wrong. Criminally speaking, that's accurate. What we are saying that Joe Biden did, not only in Ukraine, but in China, and China may be different because they were actually selling equipment that was not supposed to leave the United States to China for their stealth bombers. But in Ukraine, Joe Biden, that we know of, didn't do anything illegal. It's just so unbelievably grotesque and unethical that if Americans actually knew what he and his son were doing, it's a crime family.
Do you know what the problem for me is, though? It's not even, there might be an email or something that like exonerates Joe completely. He did nothing wrong and nothing was shady. My problem is they don't give a damn enough to look. The media to report on it, to not treat it the same way as this, which Trump's like, okay, here's the evidence, do your worst, and then they prove them right by putting ... between 500 words. But meanwhile, this story gets almost no play.
Well, yeah, because to your point, I mean, Joe Biden didn't make the association between his son and what happened in Ukraine. But he did, Stu, as I heard you point out on radio this morning, he did admit on camera, we have the footage, we can play it, he admitted to putting pressure on the Ukraine officials and withholding money.
Right.
Using his political influence, his political power to do that. Let's play that real quick.
I'm desperately concerned about the backsliding on the part of Kyiv in terms of corruption. They made, I mean, I'll give you one concrete example. I was, not but it just happened to be that was the assignment I got.
See, that was the correction there. This didn't come from me.
And so I got Ukraine. And I remember going over convincing our team, or others too, convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees.
I mean, he knows he's on dangerous ice.
I guess the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion.
So we're not.
They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him.
Then all of a sudden,
I said, I'm telling you, you're
call
not
him.
getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, what, 6 hours? I looked, I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid at the time.
Now, this is the point, the exact opposite point that this phone call makes with Donald Trump. I don't know if this guy was solid or this guy was a crook. I don't know which side was right here. But it works really well to look at, did the vice president do that because of his son? Or did the vice president do that because he really felt that there was corruption and the White House wanted it cleared up? Or did he do it knowing that doing the thing that was in the country's best interest would also be in his best interest?
Right. I mean,
Yeah, what's different about this?
yeah. I mean, if you look at it, I had some people pushing back on me on because I posted this today. If you really look at what they're accusing Trump of, not what he's admitted to, because he has not admitted to this, but what you're accusing Trump of is he was using quid pro quo to hold back money because he wanted to get some outcome in Ukraine. It's exactly what he just admitted to there. Biden actually did do it, and he's on camera doing it.
$1 billion.
Yeah, and the pushback from some was, look, you know, Biden was acting essentially aligned with U.S. well-defined interests in Ukraine, and Trump is doing it on his own behalf for his own benefit. I was like, well, there's a very natural thing, and it's not just people in the media, but a lot of people are doing it. There's a natural thing here that keeps affecting this conversation, which is to dismiss the potentially positive outcomes and thoughts of Donald Trump and dismiss the negative ones of someone like Joe Biden. So, like, if you dismiss that Biden also happened to be aligned with his son's best interests, if you dismiss that, and you dismiss the fact that there's obvious interest in the president of the United States knowing if there was corrupt dealings going on with a foreign nation, if you dismiss both of those, well, then, yeah, you're right, they are different. But you can't dismiss both of those.
Just like we can't. I'm not saying, I led this with, I'm not saying Biden did anything criminal. It's grotesque, and I think the laws should be changed. But he's not going to jail over this, neither is his son. But it is worth having a conversation. We lost $1.8 billion. It went to an oligarch, a really nasty guy, the guy who owns the bank, the national bank in Ukraine. He also runs Burisma, which is that how you say it? I can't remember. The natural gas company where Joe Biden's son was working. Now, wait a minute.
And was being investigated by this prosecutor.
By the prosecutor, because Joe Biden came and said, we're going to give you $1.8 billion to enhance your natural gas exploration. Well, that's great. That's Joe Biden's sons on that gig right there.
You must have missed the 10-part New York Times expose where they went through all the details and the transactions, and they cleared.
Yeah, they
cleared
separated that.
Sure they did.
So then he's giving that money. We gave our tax dollars, 1.8, to a bank. That money went away. That money is in offshore accounts. Nobody knows where that money went. Do you think that we should have a prosecutor look at that transaction? Whether Joe Biden is involved or not, we should get down to the bottom of it. They stole $1.8 billion from us. That's a pretty big heist. Does anybody care?
Yeah.
It's election season.
That's a great point.
I know.
I did also
We
hear.
weren't talking about it during election season, so maybe that helps.
Interesting.
I did also hear Ben Shapiro point out, you know, depending on how you're looking at it, you could read this and say that Zelensky was the one who was trying to give quid pro quo, who was trying to, I mean, you know, they're both buttering each other up, right?
Yeah.
He's trying to butter him up. He's the one who brings up, we wanted to drain the swamp. He's the one who, you know, brings up the ambassadors and stuff like that. So depending on how you're looking at it and your bias that you're coming from, you could say that he's the one who offered to do that type of thing.
Isn't it also the money was paid?
and there's
nothing came of like. So what?
And, and there's no threat to hold the money unless he does X, Y, Z.
Right.
There's no threat in
He
here.
did hold the money until Congress said, "Hey, we should look into this. Why are you holding this money?"
I mean,
But he gives a different reason even in here. He says, I don't think we should be paying this much. I think our European nations should be contributing. I think the United States is paying too much.
Except that Donald Trump gave another explanation the next day, which was different.
Well, he
because
lies.
he's Donald Trump. Right. He's Donald
lies,
Trump.
and politicians use leverage on on world leaders, right? Like this has always been the case.
Look, we may find like much more evidence in a smoking gun and all of these big things that are always promised as every one of these document releases come out. The bottom line, though, is stepping back from whether this is a good moment for Trump or whether it was a good moment for Biden. Because people are like, well, if you think it was Biden who did something bad, then you must think Trump did something bad. Well, yeah, kind of. Like, I don't think any of this is great. It's kind of what I expect out of politicians. Right. But does it rise to the level of impeachment? And to me, the answer is, at this point, clearly no. You guys have an election coming up in, what, 15 months? These are not the actions of a party who is confident in victory.
Well, remember, they announced impeachment before the transcript came out and before the whistleblower has testified.
Right.
Don't you want to at least wait till like
the whistleblower said that Trump brought Rudy Giuliani's name up 8 times. He didn't. It was mentioned twice. And the first time was from Zelensky. He also said there was a promise made. There's no promise made. Yeah. Why are we waiting with bated breath to hear what else this liar says?
Well, there's also the Inspector General apparently found that the whistleblower has a bias in favor of a rival candidate. They're not sharing. Yeah, they're not sharing which rival candidate it is, but it's like, no kidding.
And this is what's so interesting politically on this, because, you know, we all learned, I think, after going through the Mueller investigation, if we would just wait and not jump and spend every moment of our time chasing every little lead every single day, at the end of the day, you'll get all the information and you can make a rational determination on what happened. The same thing is largely true here, but it's also interesting at the difference of approach from Democrats, who are rushing before any information is out to impeachment, where before they waited and waited and waited for this thing to come out. I mean, Pelosi has completely switched tactics here. And I don't know why. I don't really understand why. I mean, we kind of went over some of the options today, and maybe we'll have time to get into that. But that is a really notable part of this. Who was the firewall against impeachment through all of the Mueller stuff, with all of those leaks. Many of them were much bigger than this, at least the promise of them. Here we come with no information, and she's willing to jump on the impeachment bandwagon immediately before seeing the transcript that is only 24 hours away.
I want you to recognize that last week they were doing this with Kavanaugh because of the New York Times and a source that was discredited. This week, same story, different impeachment, different person, different reason. They should all go back and watch The Post because they all think they're going to be Woodward and Bernstein. The editor, Bradley, would have pulled their esophagus out. They would have had their ankles pulled out through their mouth if they would have done this back with the Washington Post in those days. You don't run with stories like this. They don't care. Yeah. They don't care.
Back in a minute.
They found their criminal. They just haven't found the crime yet.
That's true. It's so true. Before we get back into the conversation, we want to thank our sponsor, Relief Factor. A lot of us here at the studio have had a lot of success with Relief Factor. Glenn, I think yours was the most extreme case, though.
Yeah, maybe. But I know we get letters from people all the time that are in the same thing. We were just talking about bacon with brown sugar and maple syrup. It's so good.
What does that
cook it and then you put it in the oven with because, as you said, you just have major inflammation problems in your body. You just have major inflammation problems. And that's where really we get most of our pain. That causes most of the trouble, and that's what Relief Factor fights. So if you want the best bacon you've ever had, cook it, put it in the oven, put brown sugar on it and maple syrup.
And then pop a Relief Factor there.
Then you'll be eating Relief Factor like candy.
If you are a bacon lover, you got to get Relief Factor in your life. It's a new slogan right there. We're coining it. You get their 3-week quick start pack for $19.95. You can go to relieffactor.com or you can call 800-500-8384. Glenn, you mentioned before the break just how poor the reporting has become because they just want so badly to find a crime that Donald Trump has committed.
It's important. They have found their criminal. They just have to find the crime. For anybody who says, I've got nothing to hide, when you live in a totalitarian society or one where fairness and justice does not prevail, they will find a crime. Eventually, they'll find a crime, and they'll get people to believe that you are a criminal. And that's exactly what they've done to Donald Trump.
Yeah. I just wanted to bring up a funny screenshot of CNN's breaking news before we move on to a really interesting poll on how Americans might feel about this impeachment. But breaking news, CNN source.
Yeah, do they have a second source on this?
I don't know.
Give me a second source on the president not wanting to be impeached.
Yeah, for you podcast listeners, it literally says CNN source, Trump does not want to be impeached.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. So that's
Stunning development.
Yeah, journalism over at CNN. So there was a Monmouth poll that was done, that was released last month. So it'll be interesting to see how this changes. But even just last month, a majority of registered voters, by nearly 2 to 1 already, oppose impeachment. So the most significant figures are concerning independent voters and voters in swing counties because,
non-white.
Yeah, exactly. And then so the top 3 reasons are they feel Trump has done nothing wrong. They believe the measure would be a waste of time and money and that the endeavor is a witch hunt. Can you imagine them changing their minds after this latest episode, Glenn?
Yeah, because they are addicted to their insanity. They really, truly believe this time we got it.
But do you see, I mean, the voters who just said, yeah, we oppose impeachment because you guys are taking it too far,
No, but
certainly they're not going to change their minds now.
If Donald Trump doesn't react more presidential in the coming months, it's going to hurt him. And only going to hurt him because they're going to put him in the same category. They're going to look at these two parties and they're going to go, these guys are exactly the same. I hate Pelosi, I hate Ocasio-Cortez, and I hate the president because he just is poking at them back. He needs to stand up and say, enough is enough. Yeah. Enough is enough. They have accused me of everything. It's time I go back to the work for the American people. And I would suggest that Congress does the same thing because people sent us here to fix this country, not to bicker and argue and accuse and make up lies and try to get me impeached. He would rally the country around, he'd rally the independents around, but he has to remain an adult.
Stu, do you agree?
I mean, there's obviously no chance of that, right? Like, that's just not, I mean, I don't mean that even as an insult. It's the part of the job he likes the most, right? He loves fighting with the media. He loves getting in these battles. And the fact that he doesn't want to be impeached, well, he doesn't want to lose, but he likes this battle, I think. I think he likes the fact that they're coming out. And I think it does harden his base. And if you look at those polls, an impeachment inquiry, there's a reason why Nancy Pelosi didn't want to go along with it for 2 years. It is not popular.
Worked.
It's not one of those things. I mean, unless you have something crystal clear, and this isn't that, at least at this point, maybe we'll find out something more at some point. I'm willing to look at all the information, but I mean, you can't read this and be like, oh God, open and shut case on impeachment. It's insanity. You know, there's kind of a varying view of what impeachment should be, right? Like there is a sort of Justin Amash is on the bandwagon of basically like, look, you know, if the president does a lot of things that are against the public morals and the way we expect a president to act, you should impeach him. And then there's like the Alan Dershowitz take, which is basically like you almost never impeach someone unless it's super duper serious and clear. And like I tend to lean more towards the Dershowitz way, not all the way to Dershowitz, but like more towards that way. I think you need something pretty cut and dried here to overturn an American election. And the fact that there is another one right around the corner makes this even more insane. Let the people choose, right? Like if someone gets elected, like Nixon's a great example, right? Nixon goes through, he wins the election with all this stuff going on, and he starts the new term, and they're like, wait a minute, we're getting new information. It seems like a sensible use of impeachment, right? You have something pretty clear cut, and it's timed right. It's a point of like, okay, well, he won, and the information the people got to make their decision may have been flawed, right? So you can understand that. Here is a case where they elected this person. They knew what Donald Trump was. They knew how he talked. We knew how he acted. The fact that you just want to overturn it because you think that there's, well, we don't like it anymore.
That's what they're doing with Brexit.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
All right, back in a minute.
They think they know better.
Yep.
I watched the Prime Minister come out.
Impeachment.
Hey, we've got more coming up in overtime. Don't forget, if you have not already gone to subscribe, you got to go to BlazeTV.com. You can use promo code NEWS for $10 off of your annual subscription. That's when the real fun starts, though. You're missing out if you don't go there. BlazeTV.com, promo code NEWS. I'm going to be talking gender-inclusive dolls.
Ooh, nice.
Thank God.
Yeah, finally someone's doing it.